The subject of today's episode is the only dog to have been officially enlisted in the Royal Navy. Just Nuisance was beloved by sailors in the greater Cape Town area of South Africa and bolstered the morale for countless Royal Navy personnel during the Second World War. As my viewers know, we here at the History Guy use public domain images to illustrate our videos, and there are very few pictures of Just Nuisance, and so we'll be illustrating today's episode with pictures of viewers' dogs that have been sent to us. Thank you all for helping to create this special episode, and I apologize that we received so many photographs that we won't be able to use them all in this episode. Just Nuisance, able seaman of the Royal Navy, is history that deserves to be remembered. The dog breed that is today called the Great Dane was developed in Germany from imported English dogs, crossbreeds of English Mastiffs and Irish Wolfhounds. The dogs were bred for sport. They were catch dogs. When hunting large game like boar or bear, hunting dogs would track down the beast, but the massive catch dogs would hold it until the hunters could come with spears and kill or capture it. The use led to the breed commonly be called the German Boarhound. Although the origin of the breed goes back to the 16th century, the modern breed was largely developed during the 19th century, by which time firearms had largely eliminated the need for catch dogs, and the breed was mostly kept by wealthy individuals as a hobby, a novelty because of its great size. The name most often used for the breed today actually was coined by a French naturalist in the 18th century, who chose the name Great Dane because of rising tensions between Germany and other European nations. As a breed, the Great Dane is large. While Mastiffs can be heavier, Great Danes are the tallest of the dog breeds. American Kennel Club breed standards require that a male be at least 30 inches at the shoulder, and the world record holder for tallest dog, according to Guinness, was a Great Dane named Zeus, who was 44 inches at the shoulder. They're described as a short-haired breed with a strong galloping figure that combines in its regal appearance, dignity, strength, and elegance with great size and a powerful, well-formed, smoothly muscled body. Despite their size, Great Danes are known for a friendly personality. Adam Boyko, an associate professor in biomedical sciences at the Cornell University College of Veterinary Medicine and a founder of the canine genomics and biotechnology company Embark, explains, Great Danes are gentle giants, but this friendliness and patience is also accompanied with courage and intelligence, making them particularly adaptable and dependable companions for anyone willing to put up with their extraordinary size and strength. That description fits well with a particular Great Dane, born on April 1st, 1937, in South Africa, in the Cape Town suburb of Rondebosch. The dog had a good pedigree, and the litter was registered with the South African Kennel Union. The dog was sold as a puppy to a man named Benjamin Cheney, who had put an advertisement in a newspaper, seeking a dog to replace his previous dog, who had passed away. Even as a puppy, it was clear that the Great Dane was going to be large, even for its breed. When Cheney took him to a veterinarian to treat a sore on his tail which wouldn't heal because the friendly puppy wagged his tail so vigorously that it kept hitting objects, the veterinarian told Cheney, "By the way, I should buy a very strong collar and chain leash. Your hound is the most magnificent physical specimen of a dog I have ever had in my surgery. He's got the heart and lungs of a horse." It was equally clear that the dog was clever. The first night he brought the dog home, Cheney gave the dog slices from a joint of lamb from the refrigerator. In the morning, when Cheney came into the kitchen, he found the joint gone from the refrigerator and the bone licked smooth as a toothbrush handle. Having only seen it once, the dog had figured out how to open the refrigerator. The dog also figured out how to open the water tap, although he learned the hard way which side was hot and which side was cold. After burning his tongue once, the dog learned to put a paw under the water first to make sure it was not too hot. The dog also apparently house-trained itself, following a practice of moving away from the house, digging a hole with its forepaws, doing its business, and then burying it by kicking the dirt back in with its rear paws. The dog would then drag his bottom for a few yards to make sure it was clean, lick all four paws clean, and come back to Cheney to offer a paw to shake. Cheney was in charge of the United Services Institute in Simonstown, which provided comforts for men in the Royal Navy, Army, and Air Force. Cheney kept the dog at work where the puppy encountered servicemen. Because Simonstown was the location of the Royal Navy base for the South Atlantic Squadron, the vast majority of the men the dog encountered were sailors, and he developed a peculiar fondness for Royal Navy sailors, especially the ratings who wore the traditional square-rigged uniform with bell-bottom trousers and a jumper with a square collar hanging over the back. The dog seemed to be friends with any man in a square-rigged uniform, but was cold towards officers and petty officers who wore the different fore and aft uniform with narrow-legged trousers and a buttoned coat. It was downright disdainful of women, well, human women that is, very fond of female Great Danes. The dog followed sailors around town, although he was known not to choose favorites, and after following one sailor for hours, might then just wander off with another. It was during this time that a sailor took the dog on the train, buying a ticket for the dog to the naval yard, and took him aboard the cruiser, HMS Neptune. The sailors spoiled the dog with food, and he took to riding the train to the naval yard daily. Dogs were commonly kept as mascots, and sailors were fond of pets, but this dog, by 15 months over 150 pounds, liked to lounge on the gangplank, making it difficult for sailors to conduct business. It was this trait that prompted the sailors to give him the name Nuisance. If he had a name previous to that, it was not recorded. Nuisance was both particularly friendly, to sailors at least, and particularly intelligent, and quickly became beloved by the sailors at the base. The mess crew fed him so much food that the petty officer in charge feared that the missing food would be discovered in the ship's record. He listed the food as meat unfit for human consumption, and thus disposed of for reasons of health. Disposed of course, meant fed into Nuisance's massive maw. But there was a problem. To get to the naval yard, the dog would ride the train, something he became quite adept at. Some stories suggest that he was so intelligent that he knew the train routes and times, but he was, after all, just a dog, and most likely was simply following sailors. But railway officials were frustrated with him taking up a seat and frightening customers. They would throw him off at the first stop if he didn't have a ticket. Usually he would patiently wait on the platform and simply reboard the next train. Sailors and eventually regular commuters who grew used to seeing him would aid him in avoiding the railway conductors. Finally, officials of South African railways were fed up and informed Cheney that if he could not keep the dog off the train, they would have to put him down. Cheney, unable to guarantee the dog would not board a train, decided instead to sell him. This led to a remarkable event. Nuisance was beloved at the naval base, and the sailors made an outcry that went all the way up to the Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Navy in the South Atlantic, who used his authority as Fleet Admiral to enlist Nuisance in the Royal Navy. While there had been animal mascots aboard Royal Navy vessels for centuries, Nuisance was the first, and only, dog to be officially inducted into the Royal Navy. The Navy purchased a season pass for the railway until the enlistment could be finalized. The pass was attached to his collar. When he was enlisting, he was required to have a medical inspection. The surgeon commander found him so fit that the medical officer said if all ratings were as fit as this animal, there would be no requirement for a doctor at this depot. The enlistment paper required a first name. Petty officer at the enlistment table said he'd only ever been called Nuisance, just Nuisance. So the lieutenant during the enlistment gave his first name as Just. As Just Nuisance had, they decided, been performing his duty unofficially for 18 months before enlistment, he did not enroll as an ordinary seaman, the lowest rank, but instead as an able seaman. His religion was listed as Canine Divinity League. His enlistment papers were signed with a paw print. All sailors in the Royal Navy were required to wear a cap when outside, so one was issued as his uniform, although he was eventually given permission to go without the cap, unprecedented for a Royal Navy sailor, as it caused him discomfort. The dog was freed from normal duty, but required to be present on parade. Special instructions were given for his liberty and feeding, and a barracks assigned where he had a regular bunk. Among the privileges of joining the Royal Navy, sailors of the Navy were allowed free travel on the train. Just Nuisance's official date of enlistment was August 25th, 1939. 9 days later, on September 3rd, Britain and its empire declared war on Germany. Just Nuisance continued to show his intelligence. He recognized God Save the King and would stand still at attention, his ears erect and his tail straight out when it was played. Likewise, when the midday cannon was fired in Simonstown, everyone was expected to be silent for 2 minutes to recognize all the sailors at sea. Just Nuisance would always observe the rule and give a low growl to any who did not. He was known for helping sailors who had over-imbibed. If he saw a sailor staggering, he would come to his side and escort him to a base or a service institution, where he usually had a regular bunk himself, watching over his charge until they awoke. If the dog saw 2 sailors fighting, he would break the fight up, pushing in between them and even standing up. He was over 2 meters tall on his hind legs, pushing them apart. The dog was gentle around children and only hostile to people who abused him. One time a drunken sailor passed out in Nuisance's bunk. The dog climbed in and pushed the man off the bed. The sailor, still drunk, tried to punch Nuisance. Nuisance reared up and pushed him on his shoulders, knocking him down. Nuisance then straddled the man, threatening him with his massive jaws. Another sailor intervened and calmed the dog down. Despite a few incidents where the dog got angry, Just Nuisance was never known to bite a man. He was beloved by sailors who at times banded together to keep the dog out of trouble. One time when he interrupted a dance at a theater, he was likely just expressing his opinion of the entertainment, The sailors present protected him from being arrested by insisting that he was chasing a rat. The sailors at the base even managed to sneak him aboard aircraft patrolling for German submarines, something he enjoyed greatly. Shop owners in the town loved the dog. He was so popular that if he decided to come into a shop, it would draw sailors from all over. They brought him so many drinks, lager was his favorite, that the base commander had to put a notice out to limit the dog to 6 quarts a night. Dr. Boyko suggests never giving a dog alcohol. Dogs are not built to tolerate alcohol, and even consuming small amounts of it can lead to life-threatening metabolic acidosis. Nuisance may have been able to tolerate alcohol only because of his large size, since larger dogs have slower metabolisms. While Nuisance could be, well, a nuisance, and was brought up on various offenses from arriving at the base late to riding the train without his pass, his military record was good. His conduct papers read, character, very good, efficiency, moderate, discipline, poor. But he was more than a distraction for sailors. One night he found a sailor on the base who had passed out from malaria and barked until someone came. The attending physician credited Nuisance with saving the man's life. An officer recalled him warning him of a dangerous scorpion and killing the arachnid. Likewise, he did the same, warning off men from a cobra and cleverly killing the snake, kicking dirt at it until it was confused and then pouncing and crushing its head. Nuisance played his role in the war effort. He accompanied the base commander to community events, raising money for the war effort. He was used in propaganda, became one of the most famous dogs in the world, and postcards of the dog were sold. He was bred, and 2 of his puppies were auctioned for the war effort. But his real role was as a friend to sailors, where his constant antics and gentle aid provided valuable distraction and comfort in a difficult time. Just Nuisance is still remembered in Simonstown, where there's a statue of him. And in 1985, his life and antics were chronicled by author Terence Sisson, who was a Navy flyer who knew and befriended Just Nuisance during the war. The book is full of anecdotes told by people who knew the dog. And the book, Just Nuisance AB, meaning Able Seaman, is a great read if you can still find a copy. Dr. Boyko notes that Great Danes, because of their large size, are particularly vulnerable to joint disorders like hip dysplasia. Just Nuisance, who had injured himself doing things like jumping off of moving trucks, and who had once jumped off a Royal Navy cruiser when the crew had tried to Shanghai him, swam 3 miles to shore, eventually developed paralysis of the sciatic nerve, had to be put down. He was euthanized on April 1st, 1944, his 7th birthday. The next day he was buried with full naval honors, including a bugler playing last post, and a volley followed over his grave. More than 100 sailors and men attended, a testament to their affection for their fellow seamen. Just Nuisance's descendants live on today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The History Guy, short snippets of forgotten history between 10 and 15 minutes long. And if you did enjoy, please go ahead and click that thumbs up button. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions for future episodes, please write those in the comment section. I will be happy to personally respond. Be sure to follow The History Guy on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and check out our merchandise on teespring.com. And if you'd like more episodes on forgotten history, all you need to do is subscribe.